Video number 12 on subject of emotional intelligence. EQ, or EI as it's affectionately known. It's a term created a long time ago by some researchers, and it was popularized by Dan Goleman in 1996, and he brought out a book with the same title in that year. I remember buying that book for the first time and really starting to think about emotional intelligence in a work setting and in management and in leadership. So what is emotional intelligence? Just taking the basic definitions of that from Dan Goleman. It's the ability to recognize, understand and manage our own emotions. It sounds straightforward, but we don't always know how to do that or recognize some of the behaviors that might not be as constructive as we want them to be. And also the ability to recognize, understand and influence the emotions of others. So good self-management, understand your own emotions, and then how can you help to understand others and influence them as well. So easy to say, more difficult to do, and the book itself opens up lots of thought processes and ideas as to how to achieve that. So today we would like to talk about emotional intelligence and our spin on that, and to give you something to work on. Just a means to have a little think. Maya Angelou, nice little phrase. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. People will never forget how you made them feel. Now that can be in the moment and it can be in the long run as well. As I was reading that, I had recollections of working with others and a good example and not so good example. And the first thing that you get to is how they made you feel. I can't remember what they said or what they did in real terms. But
no names, mate.
no names, of course not, because we're all developing, we're all growing, and same with me as well. Go back many years ago, maybe I didn't make people feel the right way, but you'll learn from that, and you want to get better at that and build your emotional intelligence. So people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So it's important. And linking that into business and into marketing as well. People buy emotions. Yeah, we all think we're buying a product. We all think we're buying something rationally, but all we're doing is we're buying something emotionally and then instantaneously trying to rationalize that emotion. So products make us feel a particular way. Yeah, the association with those products, the marketing, and the advertising makes us feel a particular way. So we're driven by emotions, we know that. So it's important to understand it as an individual and when we're trying to influence others and influence teams.
And just to add, Lindsay, as well, you mentioned the how people have made you feel, that will tend to be lasting. I think very much so as well with your manager or your leader at that particular time. I think that relationship, as we've discussed on some of the previous videos, 70% of the variance in engagement is down to your manager.
Yeah.
And I think how that manager makes you feel, good, bad or indifferent, will tend to last.
And again, just to flip that around, because if you've watched our videos, you'll have seen this. We call it the power of 95.
Yeah.
So line managers, that's anybody who's looking after a team, tend to be just 5% of the organisation. From a headcount point of view, will be 5% of the organisation, yet they're trying to influence the other 95%.
Yeah.
If they're doing that with good emotional intelligence, that'll be very positive outcomes. Yeah. If they're doing that with poor emotional intelligence, you can see why we have low levels of engagement. Yeah. Another statistic to throw at you, and it's just to give you the sense of it. Yeah. That the prediction of success in life and in business can be attributable to EQ. Around about 80% of your success in business and life attributable to EQ rather than straight IQ or intelligence. Now, whether that's 80% or 70% or 50%, what it's saying is EQ's got a big factor in your success as an individual, in life, and in your working environment. So, EQ, very important. So, what do we see in real terms? Again, we quote Tony Robbins quite a lot because he's been out there for 40 years, and his laboratory is, tens of millions of people. So he knows what he's talking about, particularly on the practical psychology front. And he'll say that one of the biggest constraints in our businesses is the psychology of the leader, or the business owner. So the psychology of our leaders for us presents a particular challenge. Yeah. Ray Dalio, another guy we've quoted before, runs the biggest hedge fund on the planet, and is now starting to bring all of his principles and his insights into how he's managed to do that. And you find him on LinkedIn and all the social platforms. Yeah, he's giving away secrets. He said there's two moving parts in business: people and culture. Now, again, we've had previous conversations around culture, and it's leaders who manage the culture, or the culture will manage the leader. The leader's got to determine what culture they want. And I would hope in this day and age that leaders are thinking that EQ brings a better level of success. It's going to bring a better culture. So our culture is built around emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and I've just seen some of the clients we've worked with as well. It's great to see a lot of their leadership programs now have got a specific module on EQ. So I think people are starting to realise the importance of EQ. A lot of people anyway.
Yeah. I only think 1996 when this term was first popularised. That's like almost 3 decades later, and we're still talking about EQ not being prevalent in modern day working. But it will start to raise its head and become important. Another name to drop in there, anybody who's seen Gary Vaynerchuk out on every social platform you can imagine, and he'll say it in a very New York type of way. He will recruit based on EQ rather than IQ. Now that's easy to say and a bit more difficult to do, but what he's saying is, I'm putting some importance on that. Yeah. And again, skills, getting somebody to find a way to perform a task can be done through training. EQ feels a bit more difficult to build in. So let's recruit for it. Let's bring that emotional intelligence in, and then we can work on the skills from there.
I heard a term which says the IQ is almost, can you do the job? Whereas the EQ is about, will you do the job?
Will you do the job,
yeah.
And will you fit in?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So Lindsay mentioned the Daniel Goleman book back in the mid-90s, and essentially emotional intelligence, why it can matter more than IQ. And I remember reading this years ago for the first time, and at that time I wasn't really sure what EQ was, but I'd heard about this and I thought, oh yeah, give it a shot. And it looked a bit daunting and the writing was really small and stuff, and I thought, oh well, yeah, give it a shot. But the very first page at the start of the book, there was a little statement from Aristotle that they quoted. So I'll just read that because this gave me a good understanding of what he meant by EQ. Yeah. And it basically just goes, anyone can become angry, that is easy, but to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way, this is not easy. And that was just by Aristotle. So it's about how you manage those emotions. I think that just summarised it quite nicely for me at that particular time. And when I look back through this again, it still rings true with me in terms of a summary. So in terms of the book itself, when Daniel Goleman popularised the subject of EQ, he looked at key areas, and it was self-awareness, self-regulation, self-motivation, empathy, and social skills. So there was 5 key areas of EQ. It's obviously changed and evolved since then, and there's lots of different takes on it, but really that's the fundamental elements of EQ. In terms of trying to objectively measure and use a tool for the awareness element, but also the development side of things, We use a tool, Harrison Assessments, which we've spoke about a few times, particularly in the last video 11, where we looked at predictive analytics. And really what that's done is it's simplified the 5 elements of EQ from Goleman, and it's produced 4 customized behavioural competencies. So you can actually measure someone in each of the 4 key areas that they've come up with. The 4 areas they've come up with are knowing oneself, relationship leadership, self-motivation and self-management, and social awareness and service orientation. So there's 4 key areas that can be objectively measured, and it looks at the granular level of all the traits that's necessary to give you success across each one of those 4 elements.
Yeah. So just to summarise there, what we're saying is that 3P can make this easy to understand and measure those success factors from an EQ perspective to help each individual and an organisation as well.
In very simplistic terms, as you mentioned at the very start, Lindsay, the little matrix that we've produced with the 4 key areas, it's just about the recognition of yourself, the recognition of others, and also the influence of yourself and the influence of others.
Okay. So as a means to give some advice here today, what we suggest is that you look for emotional intelligence competency and the success factors that lead to that as well. Okay. Now we know we've looked at this. There are many tools out there, and they're all excellent. Okay, but you have to choose something. Okay, and we've done that. We've chosen a tool which will predict a level of success through particular benchmarking and type of analytics that we use, Harrison Assessments. And we're proposing as well that you start to build your talent management strategy on this. If you look at our talent wheel on the screen, you can see where we fit in emotional intelligence, EQ. It's a wraparound feature within talent management and the talent management strategy.
Yeah. So in terms of looking what we recommend, etc., we're not saying you should get out there and just measure everyone and everyone's EQ. Specifically, as Lindsay mentioned earlier, the power of 95, the key influencers. So if you can focus on the 5%, improve the EQ of those 5% of people, it can then have a massive knock-on effect on the whole of the business, on the other 95%. So certainly, as a recommendation, is to start thinking of the EQ of your key influencers, the power of 95. So start thinking of how you can measure the EQ for those people. And certainly as part of what we're trying to do through the Aspire Talent Management Programme is, you'll see on the wheel, it goes right the way around with the talent analytics. So it covers right across those key areas of talent management. And we're looking to certainly offer some things that you can take away from today. We're certainly a free sample report which goes into detail of all the behaviours that are linked to the 4 key areas of EQ that we've mentioned. So it's a free Harrison Assessment report, a sample report. We'll give you the details so you can get involved if you would like a copy of that. But also more importantly, to see if you'd like to actually have your own EQ score. And we're happy to give that away for free. It's a percentage, so just out of 100, gives you a percentage of where you sit across those 4 areas of EQ. So as I've said, that we can certainly give that away for free. And for those people who want to dig a bit deeper, you can get access to the full suite of your own reports for the EQ, which covers the knowing oneself, the relationship leadership, the motivation and self-management, and also the social awareness and service orientation. So it's a full suite. I can't remember exactly how many pages, but it's a really detailed full suite of reports, basically to help you with the first element of the self-awareness. So we can we'll leave details of how you can actually get involved. And it really all comes from a 20-minute questionnaire. As we mentioned before with the Harrison Assessments, really simple. It's a preference-based assessment, and the information that we can get, certainly measure yourself against the customised emotional intelligence competency.
Okay, so just to summarise for today then, so people will never forget how you make them feel. Bear that in mind. And I think the psychology of ourselves as leaders, managers, or influencers in the business is key. We can help you to make this easy to understand and to measure the success factors for emotional intelligence. And a recommendation to really build this into your talent management strategy. And as Trevor says, there are some links here now to give you access at the levels that you may want to engage with. So thank you for listening today. See you next time.
Yeah, cheers.